Rebel Moon Director's Cut by Zack Snyder. So, I am a Zack Snyder fan. That's why I wore the shirt, just to show that I supported the Snyder Cut. I just think he's a true filmmaker all around. The writing sometimes perhaps is not the best in his movies, and I can understand that. But I feel like he's someone like Steven Spielberg in the sense that they're not like Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino. They're not director writers that it's all just them, you know? They work closely with the writer, and they're a very big producer on their films. And then together they collaborate and create it. And then once the script is done, they take control, and it's very much their movie, their vision, all that, you know? Just a brief little rundown. I love the Snyder Cut. I'm a big DC fan, and I remember when Batman vs. Superman came out, I was not a fan of that movie. And I was like, Batman was cool, but I didn't like the movie off the bat. I saw it like 2 more times, and I was like, whatever. It got better. That's the thing. I started to like connect the dots, make leaps, and then kind of understand what he was going for. And then I was like, okay, this could have been a really cool movie. And then the Ultimate Cut came out, and then I actually did get to watch that in theaters. I got a screening ticket, and I was like, wow, okay, this is exactly the movie I was imagining in my head. And I love Batman vs. Superman, despite all that controversy. I like that movie, and I really like Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I love Watchmen. I like 300. I like his zombie films, but I love Watchmen. And anyways, Man of Steel, masterpiece. I could go on. Perhaps in another video, I'll make a Snyder video. So, Rebel Moon. I did not watch the PG-13 versions. I knew there was no point. Once it was announced, he was simultaneously already working on the director's cut, and I was like, well, there's no point, you know? So I waited. I got 0 spoilers, 0 plot. I knew nothing about Rebel Moon. I just knew that it sucked. That kind of hurt, you know. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't fully confident. I'm not a blind film fan, you know. Like, just because it's Zack Snyder does not mean I'm gonna love it, you know. But I have faith. I like his other things, so I have faith. But when I heard how much it was hated on, I was like, man, like, I wonder if the director's cut is even gonna be better, that much better, you know. So I have no idea what the PG-13 version is like. But that doesn't matter, because what matters is his vision, you know? So, I've seen both movies already. Part 1 and Part 2. And I really, really like Part 1. Right off the bat. Like, I loved it, but I can't say it was a masterpiece. I can't say it was a perfect film. But I think right off the bat, Part 1, Chalice of Blood, I believe it's called. I would say I would give that... I don't love to rank movies, but just so you could understand me. I would say I give Chalice of Blood like an 8 out of 10. Maybe even a 9 out of 10. But I think I'm more comfortable with an 8, you know. Part 2? Part 2, I didn't love it. I liked it. I didn't hate it. Nothing pissed me off. Nothing triggered me. Even though it was a shorter movie, it did feel like it went on a little too long. And yeah, I would give Part 2 probably like a 6 out of 10. So, what do I like about the first one? What don't I like about the second one? As you know, if you're following me, you know that I'm a big Star Wars fan. And yeah, I don't want to get into it too much, but I mean, Zack Snyder originally pitched this as a Star Wars film. Disney said no. Lucasfilm said no. And he was like, you know what? I'll just kind of go balls to the wall and just expand this to the most Zack Snyder I can be. And he just kind of went all in with his creativity, with his love for like medieval, with his love for like Greek gods, for like samurai, like it's all here. Western, Star Wars, like it's all here. And I've seen someone criticize this, saying that's like it looks like it was done in AI, and I could see that. As someone who shares a lot of his interests, I kind of think it's awesome that he kind of tried to combine literally everything, kind of like George Lucas did, but in a much more literal way. I think George Lucas kind of used all of his influences to create one thing, and I feel like Zach more like took all his influences and inserted them into this world. So yeah, that varies on taste. Obviously, I think George Lucas did it better, but yeah, I think the story of Rebel Moon as one, it's part 1, part 2. So I'll look at them as one story, as one film. I think the story, which was done by Zack, in the credits it says story by Zack Snyder, screenplay, it's more people. I think there's nothing wrong with the story. I like the story. I think the story is really cool, and a lot of that is established in the first movie. I just think the problem with the second movie, I'm all over the place. Sorry, I know I haven't even got into why I like the first one. I think the problem for the second movie is that it's the writing straight up, not the story, not plot holes, not things like that. Just the screenplay, like the dialogue, the way they formatted certain conversations, the way certain things were revealed about characters. I was like, oof, this is a little amateur the way it's done. It's a little forced. Yeah, I think that's the thing. The writing was a little bit forced in the second film, and I didn't really care for it. I don't think it was boring, but that's the one thing I will say that's great about both movies. I never felt like the movies were that long, and altogether these movies are like almost 7 hours. And I think all in all, it goes by pretty fast. It's paced pretty well, and I think that's a plus for both films. So in the first movie, again, I just think it was a really cool story, really cool action, acting, all around really cool. The world that he's setting up was very interesting, very Zack Snyder, very dark, very bloody, ruthless, sexual. I thought it was so funny, so cool, the cantina scene. It was literally the cantina scene out of Star Wars, except in a brothel. And I was down with it, honestly. I don't see that as like copying Star Wars. I see that as like an homage, as a fun little thing. I thought that was really funny. It was very Zack Snyder, but the parallels were very real. So all in all, I just think that first movie was really cool, really entertaining, really good world building. A feel good, satisfying ending to that first movie. I was really excited to see the culmination of it all in part 2. I really like that movie, honestly. I think there's a lot of heart in that movie. The music's amazing. No score is ever gonna match Man of Steel. That score is just off the charts. Hans really went for it. I think this one's also very good, but yeah, it's not a masterpiece of a score, but it's still great. I love like the just like this like Lord of the Rings type of flair of the music, and I really dug that. I think that honestly, for Zack being such a visionary, for him just loving action, blood, warriors, all that, I gotta say the last fight in the second film, I do think even though the fight dragged on, in general, I don't even think it needed to be shaved down to be better. I just didn't love the battle, honestly. It seemed a little messy, not planned out well, honestly. Not planned out well from a writing perspective and from like a tactical perspective. Like Titus is freaking Kratos from God of War, like that was very obvious. And it was cool. I freaking love Kratos. God of War 2018, favorite game of all time. God of War, Ragnarok, second. I love those games. So, anyways, just from like I said, writing and tactical, logical perspective, I was like, this is not a good plan. Why are they coming out in waves? And it's almost like they wanted all the farmers to die. Like, I didn't care for that last battle, which sucks because the last battle was like an hour long. Which is probably why I didn't like the movie so much less than the first movie. Again, I didn't hate that movie. I didn't hate it, but it's definitely a letdown. It was honestly a wasted opportunity to get all these fighters together, one last stand, and just yeah. I've seen better, honestly. I'm still excited, honestly, for the world of Rebel Moon. The lore is pretty cool with the daughter. I think it's Issa. How she's like the chosen one, I think all that's pretty awesome, and I like the way it's been set up so
far.
And the one thing I haven't mentioned yet that is the best part of these movies I love is Jimmy, whatever, the droid, the battle droid, voiced by Anthony Hopkins. So awesome, dude. That's honestly one of the best robot droid characters I've ever seen. So cool. I honestly just love how he was just vibing almost the entire time in both movies. He was just vibing, discovering humanity, his own humanity, and just like discovering free will, discovering prophecies. I loved it. I thought that was so cool, so epic, so meaningful, so poetic. Yeah, I thought that was a really cool aspect of the movie. Aesthetically, he looked awesome. with his freaking antlers as a crown, and then his freaking cape, like so badass. He even does a superhero landing. That was pretty cool in the last battle. Yeah, James was awesome. I don't know what's his official name now because they called him Jimmy so much, and then I think even in the credits it says Jimmy, but then at the end him and Cora are saying he's James, and like if that's the name he really wants. So I don't know. Anthony Hopkins as a droid is awesome. Just to wrap this up, I guess my thoughts. I understand honestly if people don't like this, both movies. The Snyder cuts, his other Snyder cuts, I will defend, and I do think people are missing a point. They're missing something. They're being close-minded. Whatever. This one I can understand because I feel like the way this movie is honestly like a book. I feel like if Denis was to adapt Dune 100% faithfully, there would be problems. You know, the formatting wouldn't be right. It would take too much time, and it just doesn't translate to a film. And even though this is an original idea from Zach, I feel like if he wrote it like a book and then just adapted it, so I could see how people would not vibe with this. I vibe with it for the most part, but I totally understand that it's maybe not the best writing for a film. Like most of the first movie, which is over 3 hours, most of that movie is getting the team together, you know, getting the squad, I guess, getting the warriors together. And in other team up movies, in other like your superhero movies, your Suicide Squads, your Justice League, Avengers, those types of team up movies, that's usually done like in a montage, or it's done in a way that lasts 10 minutes, and it's like, okay, now they're together, let's go. And most of the film is dedicated to that, and I could see that being a problem for people. Like every single warrior, every single member of the team gets like a whole sequence, a whole long sequence. I thought it was cool, but it was very much like you're reading a book. Like we're meeting a new character and there's a chapter for them versus a scene. So again, I understand. I do think that the writing was a little oof. Those are my honest thoughts. The second movie's, like I said, definitely let down for me. The first one I really loved. So all in all, Rebel Moon as one film, judging it, I think it's a win. I think it's a success. I think like as a whole, if I'm judging this as one movie, I would say like a 7 out of 10. Again, I don't love to rate movies. That's not a thing I do. But like I said, just so you can understand how I feel about this, because I'm saying a lot of pros and a lot of cons, but then I'm still saying I loved it. So yeah, it's weird. Again, it comes down to preference. Those are my thoughts. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this film, on Zack Snyder. I know he gets a lot of hate and a lot of love. But yeah, thanks for watching.